Hey, I'm Andrew Malcolm from Mortgage HQ, and today we're going to talk about how to get a property under contract. And I'm specifically talking about investment property. If you're a first home buyer, it might be a little bit different, but if you're a property investor and you're looking at 100 different listings, it can be really daunting to figure out how to get something under contract because you don't want to spend too much time on your due diligence. You don't want to visit 100 properties and not get anything. So one commonly referred to strategy is to get a property under contract before spending too much time on it. So what does that even mean? So what that means is you would get a sale and purchase agreement from the agent, and you would agree on a price, on a settlement date, and on any other specific conditions, and then you sign your name to it, you initial all of the clauses, you send it back to the agent, the vendor agrees, the property is under contract. And usually what you'll be looking to do is have at least 3 days, if not 5, 7, 10, or even 15, 20 days, or even a couple of months, depending on the property price and the location and the kind of property. You want that property under contract so you can start doing due diligence on the property. So due diligence might include things like getting a builder to come and have a look at it, do a bit of an inspection. You might be doing soil tests, you might be assessing development potential of the property, you might be assessing whether the tenants in there are the kind of tenants you would like to have, or whether you're likely to swap it. You might be getting quotes for renovation. There's a whole bunch of things you're going to do, but the best thing is you're not wasting time on a property where the price and the conditions for sale are not agreed. What I see a lot of investors doing is spending quite a bit of time on properties they don't end up getting under contract, and it can be very frustrating when you've looked at 10 properties, they go to auction, and you don't even get a chance because the price was nowhere near, the price that it sells for was nowhere near the expectations that you had for the price. Or maybe you weren't able to do the due diligence that you would like to do. There's no point in sending a valuer to a property unless you are pretty sure you're going to get it. So once the property's under contract, you can start talking to your lawyer, and you're actually getting your lawyer to look at the limb and look at anything else on the title, so that you are going to have to pay the lawyer's fees. At least you've got the price agreed. So let me tell you about a couple of properties recently I've had under contract and why I've decided not to proceed with them. So one of them recently up in Howick, I saw that it had gone to auction. It got passed in at auction at 1.95 million. And I was talking to the agent a couple of weeks after the auction. They still had the property listed. The vendor had decided the price wasn't good enough, so they didn't sell the property. Now I talked to the agent said it was passed in at 1.95 million and they would entertain offers above that. So I offered 1.95 million, and I put a due diligence clause in there, and basically I wanted to see at what price point the vendor was going to jump at. Now the vendor very cheekily, probably with guidance from the agent, came back with a counter offer $1 million higher at 2.95 million. At which point I pretty much ignored the agent and forgot about the listing. Maybe a week or two later, the agent got back in touch trying to get me to go and visit the property, which I hadn't even been to visit the property yet. I didn't want to spend too much time and especially don't want to give up my precious weekend going to a property when I hadn't even agreed on the price. Now what we eventually came to some sort of agreement was the agent was chasing me saying that the vendor might accept 2.1 million, but I just didn't get around to putting an offer in, and I felt like at 2.1 million the price wasn't right. But what ended up actually happening is the vendor saw my name on the sale and purchase agreement, looked me up, found my number, he texted me, he called me, he was a local as well, and he said, look, if you're serious about the property, let's have coffee. I'm not confident with how the agent's handling my sale. They failed at auction. I'm not enjoying this relationship with the agent. Let's deal direct. So I went and had coffee with a guy. We had great rapport, and we ended up agreeing on a price of 2.175 million. Now at this point, I had gone to visit the property before I sat down and had coffee with the vendor. It only took about 15 minutes to walk around the property, and I was pretty happy with that price. I was happy with the school zones, I was happy with the location, the sea views, and basically I wanted to lock the property up, get it under contract, so that when I started doing my proper due diligence, I wasn't wasting my time. I had agreed up front on conditions that I'd be happy for once I had ticked off a few more things. So I sent the sale and purchase agreement with a due diligence clause, and the vendor countersigned, and everything went to the lawyers, and I just needed 3 days of due diligence. Now what I started doing is I contacted the builder that had done quotes for renovations, and I contacted the property manager, property management firm in Howick that had done inspections and given quotes on the post renovation rental yields. And I started to build a case for myself of whether I wanted to complete the purchase, basically. Now I was at the final stages and I had to say yes or no. And ultimately, because I had the trust with the vendor, had the property under contract, I was very serious. I talked to the builder, found out a few things about the property I wasn't happy with, talked to the property manager, ticked a few boxes but crossed off a few boxes, and I decided not to go through with the purchase. Now, definitely not a waste of time. Learned a lot about due diligence and the property buying process doing it this way, and I was very happy I didn't spend money on a valuation. I didn't spend money on a builder's report. Now, the vendor gave me a lot of information that I could use without spending any money, and the vendor wasn't disappointed. I explained the reasons why I wasn't going to go with the process. So due diligence, super awesome tool to use. Getting the property under contract first meant that I took it extremely seriously, looked at the numbers a lot closer, and it was beneficial for all around. And now the vendor will start to see, the market is talking to them. They're not willing to pay that price, and maybe they're going to swap agents and try again. Moral of the story: property under contract, your due diligence is, you'll speed it up, you take it a lot more serious, and you're not wasting time on properties you can't afford. So if you're like a due diligence clause, all you're going to do is email me, andrew@mhq.co.nz. Once you've filled in your profile, we've talked a little bit, I'm happy to chat you through the sale and purchase, the process and the clauses that you might want to consider doing. Now, a word of caution about clauses and sale and purchase agreements. Just be aware that whatever clauses you put on your sale and purchase agreements, the bank is probably going to ask to see that information. So if you put a valuation, bank's going to want to see it. If you put a builder's inspection, builder's report, you put a meth report, you put anything on the sale and purchase agreement, the bank is probably going to want to see it. And you might think at first thoughts, well, what's the problem? There's no issues there. But you've got to remember, if you get a builder's report done on a property and you find a few little issues, and maybe the property is a little bit leaky, but you don't really think it's a problem, you're going to get it fixed up. Now, the bank might have issues with it. The bank might decline your finance, and those clauses that you've put in the sale and purchase agreement are going to prevent you from buying the property. So don't be afraid to have due diligence clause in there. Put clauses in there that you think you need to have, but maybe you just want to have in the back of your mind your own due diligence. You don't need to put those clauses in the sale and purchase agreement if you think the bank is going to block the purchase as a result of what you find. So hit that subscribe button, flick me an email, andrew@mhq.co.nz, if you've got any questions about purchasing property.